There's an entire group of people who remember both rotary phones and the launch of the first iPhone, and psychologists still aren't quite sure where to place them. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you technically fall at the tail end of Generation X. But you don't really feel like Gen X. And you're definitely not a millennial, even though people keep trying to put you in that box. Around 2014, researchers started calling this group Xennials, sometimes even a micro-generation, because the window is so narrow and the historical timing so specific that it created a genuinely unique psychological experience. So today, let's talk about what makes Xennials different and why their experience matters. You grew up in a fully analog childhood. Boredom was something you just sat with. You memorized phone numbers. If you missed your favorite TV show, it was gone forever. You passed physical notes in class. You made plans without texting running late. You showed up and hoped your friends would be there. That kind of life required a very different relationship with trust, commitment, and patience. And then, suddenly, everything changed. Just as you were entering adulthood, the world didn't gradually go digital. It flipped. Cell phones became normal. The internet went mainstream. Friendster turned into MySpace, which turned into Facebook. Suddenly, you had more ways to contact someone than previous generations had in their entire lives. And you adapted. Not because it was effortless, but because of when it happened. Here's the key psychological piece. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for adaptation, decision-making, and learning complex systems, continues developing until around age 25. That means Xennials were still in a high plasticity stage of brain development when technology completely rewired daily life. You were young enough that learning new tech felt natural, but old enough to clearly remember what came before it. That combination is rare. Compare that to other generations. Many Gen Xers were already established adults when digital tech arrived, which can make them more skeptical of it. Many millennials have no real memory of life without the internet at all. But Xennials lived both realities, creating a kind of psychological bilingualism. You can have a face-to-face conversation without checking your phone every 30 seconds, and you're also not intimidated by new software, apps, or systems. You remember what it felt like to be truly unreachable, and you know how to function in a world where no one ever is. This also shaped your relationship with privacy and memory. Your most embarrassing moments didn't live forever online. They faded into stories. They softened. They evolved the way human memory naturally does. There's no permanent digital archive of your 7th grade haircut or that awkward breakup. And psychologically, that matters. Human memory is fluid by design. Our brains keep what's meaningful and let the rest fade. Permanent documentation disrupts that process in ways we're still trying to understand. Xennials grew up just before that shift, but then came another defining moment. Many of you entered the job market around the 2008 financial crisis, right when you were supposed to be building stability. And research shows that economic instability during early adulthood leaves long-lasting psychological effects. Even years later, it shapes how you think about money, risk, and security. So you became a generation that learned how to adapt rapidly, but also learned, very early, that things can fall apart without warning. That tension still shows up in decision-making today. Culturally, this group often gets erased. Conversations about generations tend to lump everyone into Gen X versus Millennials, as if the specific years don't matter. But they do. Xennials grew up before helicopter parenting was common. Your parents didn't always know where you were, and that was normal. You learned independence, problem-solving, and self-reliance early. At the same time, you reached adulthood during the optimistic early internet era, when technology still felt like it might connect and improve everything. Independent and cooperative, skeptical and optimistic, analog and digital. What really defines Xennials is the ability to hold contradictions without discomfort. You remember the before and the after, which means you can see both what was gained and what was lost. You appreciate modern convenience, but you also recognize the cost. The loss of patience, the loss of solitude, the loss of being fully present without constant competition for attention. You don't romanticize the past blindly, but you don't dismiss it either. If you're an Xennial, you might often feel like you don't fully belong anywhere. Too young for some spaces, too old for others. Always somewhere in between. But that's not a flaw. That's the defining feature of your experience. You grew up during one of the fastest cultural transitions in human history, and you adapted. And in a world that keeps changing faster than anyone can predict, that might be one of the most valuable skills there is. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you learned something many people are still trying to figure out: how to adapt without losing yourself in the process. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. I've got more videos coming, different topics, same depth. I'll see you in the next one.